This is Wayne Jerrolds of Savannah, Tennessee. This talented guy can also wail on the guitar, banjo, and his favorite instrument, the violin. And that's perfect because Wayne is the founder and inspiration of the Savannah Bluegrass Festival.
I started 28 years ago. Wayne Whitten was working for me at the music store. I had a music store here then, and he was talking about having a fiddling contest. So I said, okay, we'll have a fiddling contest. And we struck up the circlers and had the prize money. And I went down to Mississippi to the Bluegrass Festival in a few places, and I couldn't get too much interest. They didn't like to go and their feelings get hurt, and you know, somebody has to win and a bunch has to lose. And I told Wayne, I said, I believe I'll just scratch that idea of a contest and go to just a bluegrass festival where everybody gets to play and listen to the applaud of the people and makes them all feel good, and nobody has to leave sad that way. And it really has worked. We started 28 years ago, and it seems like it's maybe a little bigger than ever.
Bluegrass is a unique American musical form, but its roots lie in the European dance music and ballads carried over by the early Jamestown settlers. As these folks migrated westward into the Appalachian Mountains, Tennessee, and Kentucky, music helped pierce the loneliness of mountain life and soften the difficult task of taming a frontier.
Mountain music, or just hillbilly music, or musicals is what we called it. In homes, they were going to have a musical, and just like the picture on the wall, the Jim Bain band's coming to the community this weekend. So string music, I believe is what they called it, string music.
String bands provided the only entertainment of the era, and folks would gather from miles around to hear them play. The violin or fiddle was a prized possession, and musicians were held in the highest esteem.
That was true. No TV, radios were there for maybe from the late 20s or early 30s, but before that, the bands were playing and entertaining communities. I know they used to come to Burnt Church to one Mr. Hardy Reynolds' house and play there in the summertime, winter too. And I know before he passed away, he was in the hospital and, you know, he was on his deathbed. And he says, I hear the Jim Bain band playing. That was one of the last words he said. It was the most beautiful music, the sweetest, you know, this side of heaven for him.
It was said that a good fiddle player would go non-stop for more than 2 hours and never repeat a tune. Italy provided the fiddle, mandolin, and stand-up bass. The guitar came from Spain. Slavery provided the banjo. Its design is based on an African instrument made from a gourd and animal skin. Spirituals and the blues also added to the music.
My aunt, she taught me that, Imogene Hosey. She could play the guitar a little, and she taught me that one night, and then on, I thought I was on my way.
The advent of the phonograph and radio brought the music to a wider audience. In the 1920s, two young men, the Monroe brothers, launched it towards popularity. Charlie played the guitar and Bill a driving mandolin, and they sang with tight harmonies.
He did his songs, his style, and that was something new. He wrote and changed to real high lonesome sound, as he called it. You know, just to getting up into the falsetto voice, and he was probably one of the first to do that, or successfully anyhow.
That high lonesome sound was a product of the music. It was unusual for women to play instruments, so they contributed their voices. With many of the early songs portraying the hardships of rural life, the vocals took on a lamenting quality. Bill Monroe captured that sound with his high tenor lead vocals. In 1938, Bill Monroe formed his own band with a name inspired by his home state, the Bluegrass Boys. Their distinctive blend of acoustic instruments and vocal harmonies forever rechristened the old string music as bluegrass. In 1945, bluegrass music took another decisive turn when 21-year-old Earl Scruggs joined the Bluegrass Boys. Earl grew up in North Carolina, where the old claw-hammer banjo strumming was giving way to a new picking technique. Earl brought to the music a strong, lightning-fast three-finger picking style that energized the audience and forever cemented the bluegrass sound. That banjo picking is still called the Scruggs style. In the 1950s, Earl Scruggs and guitarist Lester Flatt toured with their own band, the Foggy Mountain Boys. They added the resophonic guitar, better known as the dobro slide bar guitar. The dobro was invented in America by the Dobira brothers, immigrants from the Slavic Republic. The guitar is named for them, Do from Dobira and Bro from brothers. The dobro was hardly known until Burkett Uncle Josh Graves from Tellico Plains, Tennessee, adopted Earl Scruggs' three-finger style and introduced the dobro into bluegrass music.
I know Mr. Monroe was talking about that one time, and he said dobro don't have a place in bluegrass, but later he kind of apologized for it to Josh Graves and said, well, it did fit in good, and really it does, and modern bands now are using it all over the country in bluegrass.
Hollywood and television took notice. Earl Scruggs played his Foggy Mountain Breakdown for the movie Bonnie and Clyde and performed the theme music for the Beverly Hillbillies. When Oh Brother, Where Art Thou hit the screens, a new generation of performers brought bluegrass music to a new generation of fans.
Bluegrass is really a family-type music that is good because it takes you to places where it's a family atmosphere, you know, and no alcohol, no drugs that we know about. And it kind of brings the younger generation to respect the older generation. I can get up here for a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old if we got that in common and just have the best time. And they don't think about me being 67, and I don't think about them being 8 and 10.
Wayne Gerald's favorite instrument is the fiddle, and he played for a time with Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. But he also plays the mandolin on stage, so he invented his own instrument, the fidlin.
Of course, this is a regular fiddle. I did start to build them from scratch, as you see 3 or 4 versions there, but I've come to the shortcut on it, and it works better. Don't take near as much time. But I've played fiddle for years in bands, but a lot of times, especially if I'm singing, I wish I had something to chop rhythm with, you know. But you can't lay it down, pick up a mandolin, then when you want a fiddle break, lay it back down. So I got to working on trying to get the combination together where it'd be handy, you know, I could just roll it over instead of having to go from one instrument to the other. So built the mandolin on the back. And it works just real well, I think, and flip it over. Well, of course, you got a sticky pick. You got to do something with it. And the bow, I just hang it on my side. Most of the time I'm standing up. You would think putting that sound hole in the back there would destroy the sound of the fiddle, but it really don't. It does very little to damage the original sound.
Bluegrass festivals began in earnest in the 1960s. They've quickly spread across the world with bluegrass bands representing international fans. Music, once again, is America's greatest ambassador.
There's a special love and a special nerve that hits when I hear music, and I remember about 1947, right after World War II, my daddy come home. He said, they're going to have a string band down at my Uncle Grover's tonight. He said, you want to go? And the rest of the children, I'm sure they all went. I said, yeah. I was about 8-year-old, and I got down there, and the fiddles got to playing, you know, the beautiful waltz tunes and breakdowns. And the guitars, there was Hardin Quald. He just got out of the Army, and he was a fine musician, and he played lead on the guitar. It was all acoustic, but it made me play harmony runs to the fiddle, and I thought, man, I didn't know this existed. Of course, I was just about 7 or 8 years old, and from then on, it made a impression that lasted.